All right, I'm back. So after the shell, the next number is number 2, and those are the gills. There's 2 flap of gills on each side of the mussel. So this is one of those 2 flaps. Then the other one has been removed so that we can see the rest of the organs. And then the gills, just like in fish, they allow the mussels to breathe. So for aquatic mussels, anyhow. Number 3 is the first mussel, and number 4 is the second mussel. We talk about abductor mussels. Let me swap to the pen. Abductor mussels, sorry. And write it proper. C-L-E. I can want it to write it in French. Okay. And so those mussels are allowed to close and open the valve, depending on if they contract or relaxes. And so the first one, the number 3, is the anterior mussel, and then the number 4 is the posterior, just like post. The reason for that is that this is the anterior part of the mussel, and this is the posterior part of the mussel. Anterior is where you have the mouth. The mouth is actually not labeled, but it's located right here. That's where the mouth is, and so this is why it is the anterior. There is also a dorsal part, the part where you have the hinge is the dorsal, and the part where you have the opening is the ventral part of the mussel. Okay, so those are the mussels. Number 5 is the hinge that attach both sides of the shell. Number 6 here, it's the heart of the mussel. They have a heart that allows to make the blood circulate, and then that heart is found into a cardiac cavity, which is number 7. Number 8 is the foot. All of that is the foot. It allows the mussels to bury itself in the sand, and then the seawater mussels are really good at using their foot to actually jump. They push on it really hard, really fast, and it makes them jump from one spot to another. Number 9 and 10 are in the what we call the visceral mass, and there are specific organs that we have in the visceral mass. The number 9 is that greenish area over here, and this is the stomach. And then number 10, it's that more brownish color, and those are the gonads of the mussel. Mussels are either male or female, so this would be either the ovaries or the testes, and the only way to know is to see which kind of gametes they release. So here I cannot determine if it's a male or a female. Alright, that's about it for the dissection of the mussel. We can move on to the next class. The next class is the class Cephalopoda. Like I said before, they have a modified foot. The foot is that area here on the squid. It's been modified. It's been sectioned into 8 different arms and 2 tentacles. The tentacles are the very long limb of the squid. The difference between the two, besides the length of it, is that the arms have suckers all along their length, and then the tentacles have suckers just on the extremities over here on this one, and then over here on this one. This is the only place where there is the suckers. They also have very well developed eyes and developed brain, so those are the most intelligent mollusks. You can see here one of the eye of a squid. The brain would be located right in between the 2 eyes. So what do we have on this picture? This is a squid. This is a cuttlefish. Cuttlefish are really small. The difference between the squid and the cuttlefish is that mainly the fin allows you to differentiate it. The fin in the squid, it's like two little triangle on the side, while the fin on the cuttlefish it's like a little skirt all along their body besides the head. And then on the right here we have a nautilus. Those have a shell just like a snail. You see that part is their shell. It has two sides to it, and this is how we write nautilus. Those are really cool organisms. And then the bottom one is an octopus. So they all belong to the class Cephalopoda. So the next step is to do dissection of the squid, so that you can you learn how to identify every organs. So what I'm going to ask you is to go on that link. If you downloaded the PowerPoint of this lab, you can just click on it and play it. It's about 20-25 minutes, I think. Watch it all, and then I'm going to move on to the next slide. I don't have nothing to add to what he's saying. It's very well done, so I'm just going to keep going. Okay, so just watch the video and then come back to my video. All right. Okay, so now that you watched the dissection of the squid, I'm going to come back on the different part just to make sure that you have everything straight. And then in the video, I believe is done the dissection, sorry, of the male. So I'm going to show you both male and female so that you know how to differentiate them. Okay, so this is the ventral side of a squid. We can see the siphon. That is how I know this is ventral. And this is the mantle, that like long kind of triangular shaped body is the mantle, and then that's one fin here, and there is another fin over here. Like I was saying, those are like little triangular fins. They don't go all around the body of the squid. You can kind of see an eye here. I'm going to have a zoom on it on the next slide. Then there's the 8 short arms, and then 2 long tentacles here and here with the suckers on it. Now if we zoom on it, this is viewed from one of the side, from the left side. You can see the eye. It's a little bit like cloudy because of the preservative. There's a little hole right in front of it that it didn't talk about during the video. This is called the aquiferous pore, and it allows to control the pressure inside the eye of the squid because they go at different depth of in the water, and so this allows to control the pressure. You can see the siphon here, and then this is the mantle. They labeled here chromatophore. Chromatophore are all those little speckles that you see all over the body. The chromatophores allow the squid to change color, to change pattern that you see on its body. And so it's really cool, and you have that in the other organisms as well, in the other cephalopods as well. Okay. The next one is when you open the head and you expose the buccal bulb. So this is the buccal bulb. It's like their mouth cavity, and if you zoom on it, if you look at it a little bit, open it, you can see the beak. The beak is made of 2 parts. There is the upper part, which is the upper mandible, and the lower part, which is the lower mandible. And those the beak is really powerful in squid. It allows them to really tear apart their food, and sometimes it can even release poison, and this is how they would actually kill their prey. They inject the poison, they kill or paralyze the prey, and then they tear it apart. Right after, there's a misspelling here, it is esophagus, but right after there's the esophagus, so it goes straight from the mouth to the esophagus, and then it go to the rest of the digestive system. Okay, on this part we have a squid that was dissected. This is a female, so I'm going to talk about every different part. The first, here you have the ink sac that allow them to release ink, so you have that in both male and female, and that is a way of protecting themselves. You have one of the siphon retractor muscle here. The other one is right here. This allows to control, to direct the siphon, just to be able to direct the full body. Then we have the gills. There's one gill here, and then there's one gill here. Those allow to breathe. They take up oxygen, dissolved oxygen from the water, and they make it travel through the blood, and then the blood is going to go and go into the systemic heart. So what do we have? Mollusk squids, they have 3 hearts. They have 2 gill heart, one here, one here. We also talk about those as branchial heart because we also talk about the gills as branchial organs. And so the gill heart, they bring the blood from the rest of the body to the gills, and then it goes from the gills to the systemic heart. The systemic heart is right underneath that gland. We don't see it here just because there's that big gland on top of it, but it has like a shape like that, like a triangle shape, I guess. Okay, and then from the systemic heart it goes to every other organs, and then the blood come back to the gill hearts. Okay, then we have, this is a female, so we have couple glands that belongs to the female. We have 2 large glands here that are called the nidamental glands, and then we have little glands here. There's one here, and then there would be another one on the other side. Those are the oviductal glands, and then we also have even smaller ones that are accessory nidamental glands. And then for the rest of the reproductive structure, we have a huge pouch that you can kind of see over here, and this is the ovaries. It is full with eggs that are not fertilized yet. We also can see the stomach here, and then we can see the cecum. They labeled it here, but there's a little bit more of it with that grayish color here. All of that is the cecum. This is part of the reproductive system. And then what is not labeled that we can see, there's a little piece of cartilage here, there's cartilage here, there's cartilage here, which provides support for the organism, and then there's the pen. They labeled it here, but it would take all the space underneath those structures over here, and that provide a lot of support for the organism. Next we have the male. So male, they are going to have testes, all of that yellow structure, and this is the testes. They have a penis, which is pretty cool, which usually people don't think about when they think about a squid. The cecum is here. We can see the pen over here. And what else? Here they remove the systemic heart. And what you can see is that little structure that is underneath it, and this is the kidney. And that's about it for the dissection of the squid. Okay, so we are done with the mollusk, and we want to move on to the next phylum, which is called Annelida. And the beginning of that word, annel, it means rings in Latin, and so those are organisms that are made of multiple rings, multiple segments. And so we talk about that as segmentation. It's written over here. Segmentation is division of the body in multiple segments. And in annelids, those segments are pretty much identical. The structures that we find inside the body can be repeat of the same structures, or they can be a little bit different. But this is pretty simple. Now in the next organisms that we'll see next week, that you will see with Dr. Dodd, they also have segmentation, but those segments can be fused together. They usually create some groups of segments that we can we can group together. Examples of that is the segment that is called the head, and there's the thorax. Sometimes you have those two that fuse together, create something that we call the cephalothorax, and then there is the abdomen that you can see very well. You'll see very well that in all the arthropods. Okay. In between each segment, you have little membranous walls that we refer to as septa. So if I do a drawing of that, just to show you a little bit, you would have one segment, another segment, another segment, and so those walls in between segments are the septa. Okay, septa is in plural. If you talk about just one at a time, you talk about a septum. Okay, and then annelids have the possibility to have little hair. Usually those little hair are found on every segment. On some of the segments, they can be more or less long, and we refer to those hair as kete, it's written over here, or sete, which is written over here. Those are just two words for the same thing, okay? So if we talk about organisms that do not have hair, we talk about the archaeans. And actually right now we changed the name of those and we refer to those as hirudine. And then if they have just a few hair, not a lot, we refer to those as oligokete. This is where we have the earthworm. And if they have a lot, we refer to those as polykete. That means they have a lot of hair. And we'll see, this is the first class that we'll talk about, the polychaetes. Okay, so polychaetes. So polychaetes, these multiple organisms. The first one that the manual talk about are the nereis. You have a nereis over here. Let me swipe to, sorry, pointer. This is an nereis. Those are seawater organisms. They live in the sand. They feed on waste from other organisms or on dead bodies. So they're very opportunistic in their behavior, in their feeding behavior anyhow. So you can see all the segments on that organisms. You can see that there is like legs on every segment. We refer to those legs as parapodium in singular, parapodia in plural. And so the first thing that the book asks you to do is to look at a section of parapodium. This is what you have here. This is how a section of parapodium looks like. And then those black things as those little hair, the setae or kete, and this is what you see over here. So there's a lot on just one. So you can imagine that, I don't know, 150, 100, there's really a lot of hair. That is why they are called polykete. Okay, this is a picture of the first couple segments of the nereis. The one that is before the mouth is called the protostomium. Stomium is for the mouth, proto is for before, and then the one that is around the mouth is called peristomium. And so this is what you see here. You have antennae that are over here. Those are also antennae. You have palps that allow them to touch things. There's one here, one here, and then this is the mouth. In the mouth, they have like teeth structures. You have a picture of that, a representation of that on figure 38.9. If you look at that figure, you'll be able to see the teeth. It's labeled a jaw. We can talk about both. They also have eyes. This is a ventral view of the nereis, so you can't see their eyes, but you can see the eyes in that figure. Okay. The next kind of organisms that we have in the polychaetes, there is Aphrodita. This is a picture of Aphrodita. We also talk about it as sea mouse because they look like little mouse, a lot of hair, they live in the sea, so this is how they look like. And then those are Chaetopterus, and this is the tubes that Chaetopterus create. We also refer to those as parchment worm. They also live in seawater. they create those little tubes in which they live, and if you pull them out, this is how they look like. They have a lot of little legs, podiums with hair on it. So those are very simple worms. Okay, this is all for the polychaetes, so we can move on to the next class. The next class is called oligochaetae. Oligo, like I said, it's few. Chaetae is still hair, so they have a few hair. And in that class is the class where we have the earthworms. So the Latin name for earthworms is written here, Limbricus terrestris. I would like you guys to do just like before, play the video. It is available on the PowerPoint. And then if you don't want to download the PowerPoint, you just want to watch my video, then there's the link here. It's not clickable, you can just copy it. Or you can just Google earthworm dissection, and then you should be able to find that video pretty easily. So I'm going to move straight to looking at the picture of that dissection, sorry, just to make sure that you are able to identify every organ. Okay, so this is an external view and a ventral view of the earthworm. So this is the belly, right? And what you see, this is where the mouth is right here. And so the segment that is before the mouth is called the prostomium. The segment that is where there is the mouth is called the peristomium. And then on the rest, on the belly, if you grab an earthworm, you go outside, you grab an earthworm, and then you free it later. You can grab it, and then you'll see to it, there's a side where there's like a really dark line. This is the dorsal blood vessel. So if you flip it the other way around and run your finger on the ventral part, you'll be able to feel all the little hair, and all those are called the setae or chaetae, right? So this is what it points to, but really you have like a couple here, a couple here, a couple here, and then on every segment you have a couple. The next things that you can see, there is the male genital pore. It's labeled over here. There's two on each side, and then the female genital pore will be right here. You just can't see them without using a dissecting microscope, and even with that, it's pretty hard to usually see. And so those are the places where you're gonna have release of the sperm for the male genital pore, and then entry of the sperm inside the female genital pore. And so therefore earthworms are hermaphrodite organisms. They have both male and female reproductive structures. They do not do autofertilization. That means that they mate all the time with another organisms, and they just exchange sperm to fertilize the other individual eggs. And then there's also structures that we call here genital setae. Those are things that they use to kind of grab onto each other. And then this area, it's about that big actually, I think, that you would see on the other side. This is the clitellum. It's a structure that allows to produce mucus, and this is going to create a cocoon in which the female parts are going to release their eggs. And this is going to allow the eggs to be protected from the environment. Okay, so this is all for the external structures of the earthworm. We can move on to the internal structures of the earthworm. So I want to draw something that is not here. You can't see very well, but normally there's two little white dots. I know that the drawing doesn't work very well, but those two little white dots over here, that would be the brain, and that would be the brain of the earthworm. So here, two little dots, white in real, and that's the brain. Right after the brain, we have the buccal cavity. This is the opening of the mouth, and I'm gonna go back if you let me to the pointer. So the buccal cavity right here. Then the food enter a pouch. That is the pharynx. All of that is the pharynx. After going through that pouch, it goes to a tube that is the esophagus. We don't see it well here, but it runs all over here underneath those organs, and it brings the food all the way up to the stomach. This is the stomach. This is divided into two sections. The first section is a soft pouch. If you would touch it, it's soft. This is called a crop. And what the crop is doing, it allows the worm to store the food until it's being processed. Okay. The second part of the stomach is called the gizzard. It's usually a little bit smaller, but it's very, very hard because of the number of muscles. And the muscles will, in that pouch, will like crunch the food. The food is just dirt, so it's very soft already, but it's going to mix it, make it softer, and then the food is going to go through the intestine. The intestine starts here, and it goes all the way down up to the end of the earthworm. Okay, so that is all for the digestive system. Then we have the circulatory system. Remember, actually don't know if I mentioned that, so I'm telling you. In the earthworm, this is a closed circulatory system. So you have tube-like structures that are contracted and that form the hearts. There's one here. There's, I think, one here. They have multiple. Usually it's about 3 to 8 tubes, and those are the hearts of the earthworm. And then they have blood vessels, and they have a really thick blood vessels that run here. This is that black line here. And this is the dorsal blood vessel because it's located dorsally to the body. Now, if you would remove all those digestive organs, you would see another blood vessels that will run exactly on the same spot. It would be smaller, and that would be the ventral blood vessel. At the same spot right there as well, you would have a white line that goes, and that would be the ventral nerve cord. In annelids, you have ventral nerve cord, so that we have a dorsal spinal cord. They have the equivalent of that, but on their belly, on the lining of their belly. This is also the case for the arthropods that you guys will see next week. Okay, what else? There's then the reproductive structures. They made it a little bit more simple than what it is, but we're gonna go with that. The two sets of big pouch that you see over here that are like a creamy color, those are the seminal vesicles, and what that is, it is the male reproductive parts that create the sperm. Okay, so it's the equivalent of testes in us. And then you have little small pouches. Those are the seminal receptacles. They are the female reproductive parts. Those allow to store the sperm for fertilization of the eggs. And then what else? You can guess where the segments are and the walls that separate the segments. The septa, there's one here, one here. You know, it's been broken up a little bit just to be able to open up the worm. You can actually see one here that's left over that wasn't broken fully. And then the last thing that is not very visible here, but you have to know, is that normally we have little structures. They were probably damaged a little bit. I'm gonna make them blue. Normally there's little structures like that here on every segment and on both sides. Those structures are called nephridium. Sorry. And so those are the excretory structures. It allows to get rid of ammonium waste. Okay, so that's all for the earthworm, and we can move on to the next one. The next one is a cross section. Actually, it's not all for the earthworm. The last thing we have to talk about is the cross section of the earthworm. Okay, so this would be done somewhere around here on the worm. All you don't go through any reproductive organs. All you have is going through the intestine of the worm. Okay, so what do we have? This is oriented the same way that we had on if we would, just a logical way. And this is dorsal side, this is ventral side, and then this is right, this is left. Okay, very easy. And you have a representation of that on figure 38.14. Okay, so you can look at the figure as well to follow along. This is in the figure, in the manual, is just a representation. this is really how it looks like if you do a dissection. So what do we have? Number one here, this is the large dorsal blood vessel. I'm going to jump onto number 7 here, that little spot here. This is the ventral blood vessel, okay? Right next to the ventral blood vessel, remember I told you that there is a ventral nerve cord. This is what number 8 is, it's the ventral nerve cord. Then we have the digestive system. We see, like I say, it's the intestine. So all of that is the intestine, okay? And then there's a fold in the intestine that you see over here, that is the number 2, and that is called the typhlosoal. Okay, this is written in the lab manual, so you can just check out for the spelling. Okay, number 6 is just the cavity. This is the coelom. Remember all the organisms that we talk about from now on, from this lab and then after, they are all coelomatous organisms, so this is what you see. Number 4 and number 5, those are muscles. Number 4, the muscles that are toward the periphery are circular muscles, and so those are the ones that allow the worm to squeeze and then increase its diameter. And then number 5, those are longitudinal muscles. They run from the head all the way up to the anus of the worm, and those are the muscles that allow the worm to like wiggle a little bit but also extend itself. Okay, so the reason why you can extend a earthworm or see it become long and then shorter, this is the reason why. Those are the longitudinal muscles. And then the last thing that we have here, number 9, it represents all of those tubes here, all of those, and those are the nephroregium. Okay, and that's it. So the last class is the class Eurydinia, or Eurydiinae. This is where we have leashes. Leashes are extremely similar to earthworm, with the difference that they don't have hair whatsoever. And they also have suckers. That's another difference. There is an anterior sucker here that is really large. They also have a little posterior sucker. Then you would tell me, well, there's another difference, is that they don't have a clitellum. They actually have a clitellum that appear only when they are ready to do reproduction, and then it goes away. So that would be present over here, but we don't see it here because this one is not ready for reproduction. In the manual, they just ask to look at the external structures of the leashes, so it's pretty much it. You can see the segments, you can see the suckers, and that's all. All right, that's all I got. I hope you enjoyed this lab. Feel free to send me questions if you have any questions. Don't forget to submit your lab report, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.